Picture this. It's 3 a.m. and you're lying awake staring at the ceiling. Your brain is in overdrive, running through every possible financial nightmare. What if your car refuses to start tomorrow? What if your laptop, the one you rely on for work, suddenly dies? What if you lose your job? Or your pet needs emergency surgery? Your heart races even though nothing has actually happened yet. But in your mind, it's already a disaster movie starring your bank account. Sounds familiar? You're not alone. Millions of people live in this state of constant low-grade financial panic. It's like your brain never gets to rest because you're always one unexpected bill away from chaos. But what if I told you that there's a specific number, a single, very real dollar amount that could almost erase that anxiety? Not make you rich, not solve every problem, but fundamentally change how you experience money, risk, and peace of mind. And no, I'm not talking about being a millionaire, not even six figures. The number that changes everything for most people is surprisingly simple, $10,000. I'm Jung. I spend way too much time thinking about how money shapes our decisions, our psychology, and even our relationships. And if you've ever wondered how having money saved actually feels, what it does to your mind, your habits, and your day-to-day choices, you're in the right place. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button, because today we're breaking down exactly why the first $10,000 is such a massive turning point in your financial journey. But first, let's talk about what life looks like before you get there. It's when you're standing in the grocery store aisle, mentally adding up prices while pretending you're just comparing ingredients. You're debating between the name brand cereal that actually tastes good and the generic one that tastes like stale cardboard but saves you $1.50. Or when your friends text about grabbing dinner and you start crafting a believable excuse because $25 for a night out could completely throw off your budget. That's the mental load of living paycheck to paycheck. Every small purchase becomes a risk assessment. Every unexpected expense, a medical copay, a flat tire, a parking ticket feels like a mini earthquake. You're constantly in defense mode, reacting to problems instead of planning for the future. Now here's where it gets interesting. Something strange, almost invisible, happens in your brain when you save your first $10,000. It's not about buying nicer stuff. Most people who reach that milestone don't suddenly start living differently. The real shift happens inside your head. The first change is how you perceive risk. When your savings account is empty, even small decisions feel dangerous. Switching jobs, moving to a new city, or taking a few days off work can feel like stepping off a cliff with no parachute. But when you got $10,000 sitting quietly in your account, those same decisions start to look a lot less terrifying. You don't become reckless, you become brave. That money acts like a psychological safety net. It's not that you'll suddenly quit your job to chase your dream of becoming a street magician, but you'll finally feel comfortable asking for the raise you've earned or investing in a course that could double your income. You stop operating from fear and start acting from confidence. And here's the wild part. Scientists have actually found that financial security literally lowers your cortisol levels, the hormone your body releases when you're stressed. So this isn't just emotional, it's biological. Think about the last time your car made that weird sound. If you had no savings, that noise probably made your stomach drop. But when you have $10,000 in the bank, it's annoying, sure, but it's not panic-inducing. That difference between fear and mild irritation might seem small, but it changes everything. You start sleeping better, you think more clearly, you stop making desperate choices and start making smart ones. And that, right there, is the beginning of financial freedom, not the end. Here's something most people never realize until they live it. The biggest benefit of having $10,000 saved isn't in how you use it, it's in how it changes your mind. See, we tend to think of money as something purely practical, numbers on a screen, bills in an envelope, a way to pay for groceries and rent. But the truth is, money is emotional, it's psychological, it shapes how we feel about ourselves, our safety, and even our identity. And when you cross that $10,000 threshold, your relationship with money shifts in ways that are subtle but life-changing. This is what financial planners call the emergency fund effect. It sounds boring, right? Like something a spreadsheet nerd invented, but it's one of the most powerful mental shifts in personal finance. Because here's the truth, most people who build a $10,000 emergency fund rarely spend it on actual emergencies. They don't drain it to fixing cars or patching medical bills. Instead, that money just sits there, quietly transforming how they think, feel, and act. Knowing it's there, that's the magic. It's the peace of mind that says, I can handle it. Think about what happens when you don't have that buffer. Every unexpected expense feels like a personal crisis. Your mind spirals into what ifs. What if I can't pay rent? What if this repair wipes out my checking account? What if I have to borrow again? That's not just stressful, it's exhausting. But when you got that 5-figure cushion, life doesn't feel like a tightrope anymore. Suddenly, you're walking on solid ground. You might still trip a vet bill, a broken phone, an unexpected tax payment, but you won't fall off the edge. You've built yourself a financial shock absorber. And here's where things get even more fascinating. This confidence doesn't just affect your finances, it spills into every part of your life. You negotiate differently, you hold yourself differently, you start saying no to bad deals, bad jobs, and bad relationships because you're not desperate. When you've got $10,000 saved, you're not begging for opportunities, you're choosing them. That's a huge shift. You've probably heard the phrase, money doesn't buy happiness, and sure, that's true in a broad sense, but money absolutely buys options, and options create freedom. And freedom, my friend, feels a whole lot like happiness. Now, let's talk about identity, because this part is crucial. Saving $10,000 isn't just about accumulating cash. It's about becoming the kind of person who can. Most people treat saving money like a short-term punishment. They go on a financial diet, cutting out every little pleasure until they can't take it anymore, then falling back into old habits. But people who successfully hit that first $10,000 don't think that way. They don't see saving as deprivation, they see it as transformation. They change their identity. They go from someone who can't save to someone who does. Once you see yourself as a saver, a builder, an investor in your own future, everything else follows naturally. You start noticing waste you never cared about before. You catch yourself thinking, do I really need that, instead of how can I afford it? You become more creative about earning more, not just spending less. And here's the beautiful part, it gets easier. The first $1,000 is tough, brutal, even. You're breaking habits, fighting impulses, and resisting the constant pull of instant gratification. But then you hit your second $1,000, and it doesn't feel as impossible. By the time you've saved $5,000 or $6,000, you've built momentum. The process stops being a struggle and starts feeling automatic. This is the psychological flywheel of wealth building. Each dollar you save reinforces your identity as a disciplined person. And that identity makes you want to keep saving, not because someone told you to, but because it feels like who you are. There's also a simple mathematical truth behind why $10,000 is such a game changer. Most financial disasters cost less than that. A blown transmission, a medical bill, a sudden layoff in most cases, $10,000 is enough to absorb the hit and keep you standing. It doesn't make you invincible, but it makes you resilient. When you have that much set aside, you're not at the mercy of every bad day. You don't crumble when something breaks. You bend, and that's the difference between surviving and thriving. Once you hit that first $10,000 milestone, something powerful happens that goes beyond the numbers. You start to think differently. You stop seeing money as something that's constantly slipping through your fingers and start seeing it as a tool, a multiplier of your options. Before you have savings, every dollar feels final. When you spend it, it's gone. You're always trading short-term comfort for long-term uncertainty. But when you have that $10,000 foundation, the way you view money fundamentally changes. You realize that money isn't just something you spend, it's something you use. It can buy you time, peace, and opportunities. This is where most people start thinking seriously about investing, side hustles, or passive income. Not because they suddenly become financial geniuses, but because they finally have the mental space to think past survival. When your mind isn't on fire over next week's bills, it can finally focus on next year's potential. Here's a fun twist of logic. The person with $10,000 saved is often closer to financial freedom than someone earning twice as much, but saving nothing. Why? Because the skill that builds wealth isn't earning money, it's keeping it. You probably know someone who makes 6 figures yet constantly feels broke. They drive nice cars, eat at upscale restaurants, and look successful on Instagram, but behind the scenes, their bank account is running on fumes. Meanwhile, another person making $45,000 quietly saves, invests, and builds stability. The difference isn't income, it's identity. Saving your first $10,000 teaches you that discipline beats dollars. You learn how to delay gratification, how to distinguish between needs and wants, and how to find joy in progress instead of purchases. That mindset, more than the money itself, is what sets you up for real wealth later on. Let's get practical for a minute. What can $10,000 actually do for you? It can fix almost any car problem you'll ever face, short of replacing the entire engine. It can cover most medical emergencies, especially the ones that blindside you on a random Tuesday. It can keep you afloat if you lose your job, giving you 3 to 6 months of breathing room to find something better instead of accepting the first offer out of panic. And that breathing room, that ability to choose instead of react, is worth more than any luxury purchase. Because when you're not desperate, you make better decisions, period. But here's the real kicker once you have that safety net. The money doesn't just protect you from emergencies, it opens doors you couldn't even see before. Maybe you find a course that could boost your income by $5,000 a year, but it costs $1,500 upfront. Without savings, that opportunity is a no-go. With savings, it's an obvious yes. Or maybe a friend invites you to join a small startup, or you discover a rental property opportunity, or you just want to take a few months to reskill. Having that $10,000 gives you the option to take those chances. That's the underrated power of savings. It doesn't just protect you from bad things, it lets you say yes to good ones. And let's be honest, peace of mind feels different. When you're not lying awake at night worrying about overdraft fees, you sleep better. Studies actually confirm this. People with emergency savings report significantly lower stress and better sleep quality. Think about what that means in real life. You're calmer, more present, more creative. You're not snapping at your partner because the power bill came in higher than expected. You're not distracted at work because you're trying to figure out how to stretch your paycheck another week. Money stress is like background noise. You don't even realize how loud it is until it's gone. When you remove that constant hum of anxiety, life feels lighter. You can finally breathe. You can focus on the big questions. What kind of work do I want to do? Where do I want to live? What kind of life am I building? And here's the ironic part, that peace, that clarity, that sense of control. It's contagious. When you stop living in crisis mode, the people around you feel it too. Your partner, your kids, your friends, they all sense that shift. Because when you're stable, you bring stability to everything you touch. So no, $10,000 won't make you rich, but it might just make you free. Let's talk about something that sounds like corporate jargon, but actually explains half of our financial stress decision fatigue. Every single day, you make hundreds of tiny financial choices. Should I grab a coffee on the way to work or save the $5? Do I buy the brand name detergent or the generic? Can I afford lunch out today? Or should I pack leftovers again? Should I fill the tank now or wait until payday? Each little question eats up mental energy. When you're living paycheck to paycheck, these decisions feel endless, like a background hum of anxiety you can't switch off. By the end of the day, your brain is exhausted, not because you worked too hard, but because you've been running survival math in your head since breakfast. But once you have $10,000 sitting in your account, something remarkable happens. 90% of those micro decisions simply disappear. You stop making choices out of fear. You start making them based on preference. You can finally think, do I actually like this brand of cereal instead of can I afford it? That shift from survival to choice is quiet, but it's profound. I know someone who told me that the first time they went grocery shopping after hitting $10,000 in savings, they nearly cried in the checkout line. Not because they splurged, but because for the first time in years, they weren't mentally calculating every price. They could just shop like a normal person. That's the hidden luxury of financial security, not yachts or designer clothes, but peace of mind during the ordinary moments of life. Now, let's be clear. Having $10,000 doesn't mean you suddenly have rich person problems. You're not buying sports cars or planning early retirement, but what it does give you is breathing room. And breathing room is the foundation for every smart financial decision you'll ever make. When you're not gasping for air, you can plan. You can compare insurance rates before you renew. You can switch to a cheaper phone plan without panicking about cancellation fees. You can take a weekend to rest instead of working overtime just to stay afloat. This is where small optimizations start to snowball. When you're calm enough to think clearly, you start spotting all the little leaks in your budget subscriptions you forgot about, fees you don't need to pay, habits that cost more than they're worth. Each fix might save $50 here, $100 there, but those savings stack up and they help you reach your next milestone even faster. And here's the irony. Once you have $10,000, you actually become more willing to spend not recklessly, but strategically. When money isn't scarce, you start thinking about how to use it to grow. Maybe that means attending a $75 networking event, or buying a new skill course, or upgrading your laptop so you can take on better work. The broke version of you might have skipped all those things because $75 felt too risky. But the secure version of you understand that smart spending is an investment. You're not spending from fear, you're spending from strength. And that confidence shows. You walk into interviews differently. You negotiate salaries differently. You no longer radiate desperation. You project value. Employers, clients, even friends pick up on it. People are drawn to someone who looks like they have their life together, and having financial stability quietly signals exactly that. But let's address the hard truth. $10,000 might still sound like an impossible number if you're starting from scratch. That's okay. Nobody saves it overnight. The trick is to start small, painfully small. If you have to, $25 a week, maybe less. The key isn't how much you save, it's how consistently you do it. Build the habit, not just the balance. Once you've built the identity of a saver, the rest is just math and time. Here's a stat that might motivate you. The average American spends over $3,000 a year on small convenience purchases: coffee, takeout, random Amazon buys. If you redirected even a third of that, you'd hit $10,000 in about 3 years. You don't have to give up every joy in life. You just have to be intentional, because every dollar you save is a dollar buying back your peace of mind, your future options, and your ability to sleep soundly at 3 a.m. And that's a real transformation. The person who saves their first $10,000 doesn't just become financially stable, they become mentally free. They stop being the kind of person who reacts to life and start being the kind who creates it. So if your bank balance looks depressing right now, don't despair, just start. The version of you who has $10,000 saved isn't a different person. It's you, with habits, focus, and a plan. And once you get there, you'll look back and realize the money changed less than you thought, but you changed completely.